Welcome to the Yoga Teacher Circle podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Ray, yoga teacher. You are needed now more than ever, and your unique voice, message, and offering needs to be shared with the world. In this podcast, we'll talk about all things related to teaching yoga to help you thrive doing what you love most, teaching yoga. So let's dive in. Okay, where do I even begin? You are just a fierce person that I love dearly. We go way back.
Yeah.
And we met at a yoga studio years ago. We connected, but then we kind of like lost touch and then recently reconnected a few months ago. Since then, it's been just like a really deep connection. And I knew by watching the work that you do, I had to bring you on the podcast. The title of this episode says it all. Overcome self-doubt and be the badass you're meant to be with Jenna. What a good topic. We're going to cover a few different things here. And I've had the privilege to work with you personally. I did a breathwork session, which we'll talk about soon, I'm sure. And you're not only a breathwork guide, but you're a yoga teacher, you're a healer, you're an intuitive spiritual guide, a breathwork facilitator, and just an all-around badass person, truly. Yeah. So I'd love to kick it off with you introducing yourself, a little background, and starting with your story. So what guided you to the work you're doing right now? And I know that's like, we're taking it way back. I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for having me here. I'm super excited because yoga is something that's so near and dear to my heart. And especially like being a new teacher or even being a teacher and like reestablishing yourself is something that I just have so much compassion for and deep understanding because I've been through so many stages myself too, but super excited to be here.
Yeah.
It's awesome that you have this available for everybody. It's such an area for so much growth, I think. Let's see a little bit about me. It's like, how do I condense the story? I mean, truly, it's like, for people that know me and those of you that don't know me, like this might be your first introduction to me. I really just go right to it. Like there's really not a lot of fluff. It's just like, this is me. This is who I am.
That's what I love about you too. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. And also for me, transparency, vulnerability, and just a willingness to actually like allow ourselves to be seen, allow myself to be seen is something that the world needs more of. I feel like we've all spent so much time like hiding and being nervous and uncomfortable because we never really learned how to embody who we really are. Right. So it's like, if I'm great with being vulnerable and that helps inspire someone else to be like, oh, like actually that part of me is okay. Yes, I've done what my part of my mission is. Right. So my story, really my spiritual journey began when my very, very best friend in the entire world was shot and killed at a party. So this was a super tragic event. And I had never experienced loss of that magnitude. Like I had lost grandparents, but there's something different about that very close, unexpected death that has this potential to really crack us open. So that happened. I have goosebumps. So that happened in my life and completely redirected me. Prior to that, I was in sales. I was in corporate America. I lived the life that everybody was like, oh, go live this life. Like be good in school, be involved, get the good job, make the money, have the things, right? And so I was basically just like living this very robotic life and partied my ass off all the time because I had no way to, like, I didn't know that I needed to feel the things underneath, right? So I just lived this life that I thought everyone said that this is what I'm supposed to live. Okay. Up until that point, like when this happened, literally my entire life shattered.
How long ago was this?
It'll actually be 7 years in December.
Okay. So 7 years ago is when like the big pivot happened for you.
Big pivot. Yeah. It was a big pivot. And, from that point, like I had always heard about yoga, but had never really been drawn to it, except for when this happened, all of a sudden it was like, yoga, just come to me, my love, right? Just like welcomed me with open arms. And I fell into the practice and would go to my mat every day and just sob in Shavasana, right? Just lay on my mat, just like, what? Yes, because of my friend, but also I didn't realize the impact that yoga has mind, body, and soul, right? Yeah. So that's really where it started. And I discovered all these things that I didn't even know were real. Like, I didn't know about spirituality. I did not believe in anything like that prior to this happening. And so when it happened, all of a sudden, you know, my friend would come and visit me, and all of a sudden there's angels, and all of a sudden there's these things. And I'm like, wow, this is actually happening. Like, I can't deny this because it's my own direct experience, right?
Yeah.
From there, I discovered the Sedona Yoga Festival. I had no idea that there was like a whole festival dedicated to yoga and healing and mindfulness and astrology and crystals and sound, like all these things. I was just like, this is freaking amazing.
It's incredible. I love festivals.
And also community, like-minded people. Like, oh my gosh, there are other people that feel the way that I feel. I didn't know that was possible in my life up until that point, right? At that yoga festival, I actually experienced a breathwork workshop, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but I experienced this breathwork workshop. And, you know, as you can imagine, having that loss, I carried a lot of questions. I didn't understand, where did he go? Did he suffer when he was shot? Why wasn't I there? Right? Like, there were some really deep-seated things that I experienced with this grief. But I had this experience at this workshop, and I was just cracked even more open to like this world of possibility. I didn't know that my shoulders were holding stress until they weren't. I hadn't ever connected to this essence of myself in this way. And so that was what embarked me on this breathwork journey and really started this super deep healing inward journey, connecting to my soul, connecting to my purpose. And from there, it was really just cracked wide open. I joined YTT shortly after that. I eventually joined the certification course for this breathwork experience that I had. And through all these pieces, like in doing just my 200-hour YTT and then doing Kundalini yoga 200-hour and then doing sound healing training, like all of this subtle energy body world just really started bringing me in. Trauma being like my major passion and focus. So from that point, as I was teaching yoga classes and teaching kids yoga and teaching at studios while working in corporate America, and now I know, wow, I actually have a purpose to serve. I have a purpose to be here in a much bigger way. And that gnawing at my heart that I had always had now actually made sense. I was connected to myself and I had this vision. From there, I went into the advanced certification course for Breath of Love, which we'll talk about. And from there, I was like, I'm doing it. I'm leaving corporate America. Goodbye. And just dove into being an entrepreneur and dove into my healing practice and working with women one-on-one.
So when was that? When did you leave? 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
So from there, it's just been a whirlwind, right? Like, I was asked to be one of 2 teachers for the certification course. So I'm now certifying others to do this work that I do, and, you know, different opportunities. It's like, once I actually recognize, wow, that gnawing at my heart, that like inner knowing actually knows some things. And I actually learned how to tap into it. And this is the kicker, follow it. Listen. And in the face of fear, in the face of these beliefs, which I'm sure your audience is very familiar with this, you can't make money doing that. You can't actually have a career doing that, right? And when I learned how to really trust my heart, and really it was like, no matter what came up, I am going to persevere. I'm going to do this. This heart knows where to go. That has shifted my life drastically.
How long did you sit with wanting to leave, knowing you needed to leave, before you actually did it?
So I would say about 2 years.
2 years. It was sitting with you. It was tapping you on the shoulder. It was pulling you. And it took 2 years for you to be like, okay, it's happening. I'm doing it. And so many people can relate to this, because a lot of yoga teachers end up with a full-time job, and then they start teaching yoga, and then they want to transition and phase out. So I love that. It's super empowering to hear your story with that.
Yeah. I will tell you, like, in retrospect and reflection, looking back, like, I could have left earlier, but we all have our own beautiful, perfect timing. Like, for those of you that are in that place of, I want to leave, I know I'm meant to do this, but I'm not quite there yet, like that's okay. There's no pressure. There is nothing that like you have to be here now, other than the pressure inside. Like I would sit there driving, you know, in traffic, crying on my way to the office. Why am I sitting here in traffic? I'm here to bring so much to the world, and here I am wasting my life away driving in traffic, right? It was a lot of pressure on me, but it just wasn't, the timing was perfect. So really leaning into like your own perfect timing. You're perfect.
Yeah. It'll line up, but we have to listen. We have to listen and like follow it too.
Yes.
I remember that feeling before I also went full-time teaching and was working different kind of random jobs. And I remember driving and just feeling so unfulfilled, knowing that I had this purpose and this passion that was just like sitting inside of me, waiting to burst. And once I did it, it's an incredible feeling.
Oh my gosh. I will, because the thing is for me too, I actually really loved my job. I loved my job. I loved what I did. I was really good at it. I was making really good money and they loved me, right? So it was this very interesting place of letting go of something that I loved and trusting that the pieces that I loved there were going to come with me. So like that day that I actually put in my notice, I mean, I was sweating sitting at my desk and I'm like, my heart's beating so fast. And I'm like, am I really about to do this? You know, like, like moment afterwards when I did it and on that last day, and it was celebration and such a beautiful transition for me. But like the freedom, oh my gosh, for me, I always felt so caged. I felt so boxed in, and I don't do well in boxes.
No. We've had this conversation before. We're like, do not put us in a box. We don't fit.
I don't fit here. I'm the square peg in the round hole. Like that's not, and I feel like for those of us that have this bigger vision and have this bigger mission here on this planet, we don't fit in that little thing. And so when we actually are released from that, and so many of us are seeking freedom, right? Like so many of us are seeking freedom. And so in that moment, like so many goosebumps. When I walked out of that office, holy shit, I did it. I am doing this. The boxes, the remnants of what had still been holding me in were just like, you know, just this expansive freedom. So I'm actually really enjoying revisiting this right now, because that's like a huge, like that energy shift is a huge piece of just a beautiful piece of my story.
100%. I love hearing it too. And I remember the feeling, and it's such a powerful feeling when you say yes to yourself and you follow it. Yes. So let me ask you this. I want to get deeper in a little bit to like each topic itself in the work that you do. So start first with listing off what kind of work do you do? We'll get deeper in a little bit. And then who do you serve right now?
The work that I do, there's a couple different elements to it. First and foremost, breathwork, right? This breathwork is the name of the game. Yeah. Okay. Underneath the breathwork, the essence of what we tap into with the breakthroughs, with the breathwork, there is a deeper intelligence that I believe lives within each of us, right? This natural intelligence, your soul, whatever it is, that word for you, it's this natural innate intelligence that lives within. So the second element to my work is unwinding, unraveling the traumas, the limiting beliefs, the root causes. There are so many therapies and so many things that are just very surface level, and people don't see the results they want to see in their life because they're just up here. They're not actually getting to the root of why you have self-doubt, why you feel insecure, right? So for me, that somatic experiencing and actually learning to feel sensations, unraveling sensations, recognizing how the physical body holds these memories, these experiences. And when we can actually bring love to them through this piece of the work, this somatic experiencing, and we can make room for them exactly as they are, then all of a sudden there's this new space for that innate intelligence, that vitality to be moving through, where when we were children, it got capped in some way, like it got blocked, it got restricted, it got pushed down. So that second element is really just breathwork, but the deeper essence, somatic experiencing. The people that I work with, so I have varying levels of work that I do, but my biggest passion and where I see the biggest impact is one-to-one. And so I work with women, those secretly rebellious types. So definitely sure that there are some people here that can relate to that. That secretly rebellious woman that like, you're stuck in that mundane, day-to-day, robotic life, living for someone else, living on someone else's terms, doing the things that everybody says. But inside, you're really this rebel, like, I'm a visionary. I know there's something more for me here. I know that there's more to life than this boring, mundane thing. And they're ready to break free from that. So those are the women, like those are the women that I really am super excited to work with.
Yeah, I love that. And as I heard you explain who you work with, it's you before you said yes to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Which is very common for when we feel like we're in our purpose, when we're living our purpose, to work with the people that we really connect with before we fully committed. Yes. Same with me, like helping yoga teachers build confidence and step into it, right? Yes. So I love hearing that too. And I promise we're going to go deeper into each little section of your work because it's so many beautiful layers.
Yeah.
So what I want to start with now is, so the Yoga Teacher Circle podcast listeners, we're yoga teachers, and the most common thing that comes up that I talk about in my workshops, trainings, one-on-ones is same thing, lack of confidence, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of insecurity rising up to the surface as you're stepping into this work. So a lot of what you do is peeling back the layers. Where does self-doubt come from, right? And how can we move through it? How can we overcome it? Just like the topic of this episode. So the first question I want to ask you is, where does self-doubt come from?
So many layers to that question.
Yeah.
Self-doubt comes from childhood. Like, I'll be point blank. It comes from childhood. Whereas I feel so many of our limiting beliefs and things come from that space. And not even childhood. I'm talking like in utero, in gestation. The moment your beautiful little body starts to take form, we are already taking on imprints of mom, of dad, of the environment, right? So it comes from that place. And it comes from the times when you're a little kid and you're so excited and like, oh, look at me. Like, I just had this conversation with a client the other day. She just unraveled this. She ran into her, like, they have like a dress up room, put on all this jewelry, right? Was so excited. All the necklaces, all the earrings, put pins on her shoes, right? Like this, just being super creative. And she goes running down the hallway and running into the living room to mom and dad to show them how beautiful she is and how excited she is, right? And mom goes, oh, look how gaudy you look. Surface level, these are the things that might not seem like they really have that big of an impact. It might be easy to see that, right? But in that moment, she is this young child, exuberant, connected to what feels good, feels so beautiful. And then mom smashes that vitality, that excitement, that impulse for life. And so that's one of the times where it's just like, oh no, actually, there might be something wrong with my excitement. There might be something wrong with my creativity. Oh, wow. Actually, I need to put that away.
Yeah. I need to hide it or push it down.
Exactly. And we have so many of these things happen, right? Whether it's the intention or not, as a child, we all have our own perception. We still see through the lens of our own consciousness, our own perception. And so in those things where maybe mom or dad didn't have an intention to say something hurtful or to put you down, or maybe it's, just that, shh, be quiet, I'm on the phone, right? Those moments leave an imprint in our psyche, in our subconscious. And that's where self-doubt now grows from this place. It's like we learn all these different areas where our excitement, feeling good, is not okay. And it just continues to be recreated as we get older. So by the time we're our age, it's like, wow, I can't be a yoga. I can't do any of these things. I can't go out there, because we've created these belief systems in the psyche that says, no, our power is not trustworthy. Our impulse is not trustworthy.
I love that. That makes it so clear and easy to grasp and to understand. And then also, where would it play in that we just pick up a lot of our parents' beliefs, right? Or society's beliefs, and take it on as if it's our own without even realizing it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
So look at it this way. Like I've heard this, when I learned this and it really sank in, this was a really big impact for me. When you're a baby and you're born, you are literally one body with your mom. When you are in the womb, you are connected to her. There is no separation between your body. So when you come out and you actually are like, there's a physical separation, your energetic field has not developed yet until you're about 3 is when there starts to become this differentiation in energetic fields. And at that point, you're literally downloading and taking on everything from your mom, everything from your dad, right? Like these things are actually, it's scientifically proven. It goes into our cells. It goes into the subconscious. And if you want to take it real woo-woo and go into the spiritual, like there's karma. There are things like there are lessons that as a soul, we chose, I believe, we chose to come in and learn and overcome so we can continue evolving on our own scale of evolution. So it's like, we are so complex, us humans. We're so complex. And so that's why when we start to get into these things like self-doubt or lack of confidence or, limiting beliefs, these things, it makes sense to me why it's not like, oh, let me just take this pill or let me just have this one session, right? It's taken us decades to learn what we've learned. So how could we have just one little thing that's going to, flip the switch and it's no, like it takes practice and unlearning and reparenting and support.
Yes. Support is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes so much longer than we hope, than we think that it will. So much longer to unpeel these layers, to heal them, to feel them, and then learn how to work with them and then release them. And then they come back up and then you do more, right? It takes so much work. If you aren't already a member, I'd love for you to join me in the free private Facebook group for yoga teachers. Just simply search Yoga Teacher Circle on Facebook. Most of these episodes are recorded live in the Facebook group where you can ask questions in real time and connect with the Yoga Teacher Circle community. Now, back to the episode. You talk about trauma in the subconscious mind.
Yep.
What kind of work do you do and how can someone get straight to the root of where this comes from? What does that look like? How does it come up and out?
If any of you are working with someone that is not doing their own work, run the other direction. It takes me diving into my own self, into my own traumas, into my own subconscious and working with others. Like I could never, ever, ever be where I'm at without my mentors. Never. Nor would I want to be there without, I love support now. Didn't used to feel that way. That's something I had to learn.
Yeah.
Got to learn. In working with me, it's like I have such a deep connection to myself and have done so much work around feeling into my own traumas. So like, I'll be super honest with you guys. My childhood was great. I didn't have some of these really big traumatic experiences like loss of a parent or sexual abuse or some of these things that we take on as children. That was not my reality. From the outside looking in, my parents were super supportive. They encouraged me to live my dreams, right? But with conditions. And so for me, unraveling that stuff, the intricacies, that complex trauma that actually from the outside perspective doesn't look like an easy pinpoint to be like, oh, that happened. This is where we're going to go. I've done so much work and continue to do so much work around that. I am always working on myself with that, right? So that's a first big key indicator. Second is we have to start to recognize that the mind is not separate from the physical body. From my learnings and from my perspective and just what I see with my clients and what I see happen is that we feel like these thought forms and these things that are happening up here in the mind have nothing to do with the physical body. And what's actually happening is that the physical body is an expression of your subconscious mind. For example, you have lower back pain. Well, just picking that. Like, let's say you have really intense lower back pain. You know, you do yoga, right? You do your poses, you go and do stretching, you do like different things, you get massage, you go to a chiropractor, like you do these things and you get some sort of relief, but there's always this underlying still, it's this nagging back pain. That pain, and this is one of my most favorite things to say to my clients, your pain is literally the portal to your bliss.
I love that. I love that.
The part of you that's nagging at you or uncomfortable or trying to get to your attention, that is holding the key to a massive breakthrough. 100%. So like that lower back, you know, that's actually connected to security, to safety. There's like a whole slew of things in my work that I have an understanding of. Let's see what's actually being held there. What memory, what part of you is locked inside this constriction in the lower back that we can bring love to, right? Like we can actually make space for. We've all heard the saying, what we resist persists, right? And it's the same thing with what's going on in the body. It's like when we start resisting these things that are happening, let me pop a pill for my anxiety. I'm just going to drink a bottle of wine tonight. Whatever the coping mechanism is, let me just do what I can to get rid of this. It's going to get louder until you actually start, from my perspective, actually start to look here and look into what is held, what subconscious belief, what memory is held there that we can unravel.
Yeah, that's huge. And I 100% agree with you. And I've shared on the podcast before, my experience with my shoulder and trauma, severe trauma that I experienced before my shoulder started and literally froze and locked. So I've been unraveling a lot of layers over the last few years, and it takes time. It takes time, and it's big work. It's not easy, and it's so powerful, and it's so beautiful, and it's so messy, and it's all the things. So what are some other ways that trauma can manifest in either an emotional state and a physical state? How can it come up and out for people?
So great place to look at is in your relationships. What patterns do you have? What do you see? For me, I look back at my patterns in relationship. And this is where it starts to get kind of uncomfortable, to be like, to shift from, oh, I was just dating that super psycho guy that spit in my face, pushed me down the stairs, treated me like shit, cheated on me. Instead of looking at it from that perspective and actually saying, oh, wow, that guy was abusive. That guy was abusive. That guy was abusive. What's the only common denominator? Yeah. So what part of me is creating that experience to be seen, to be loved, so that I can come even more into myself?
So you can do your work.
Exactly. So I'll bring in an example. This was a huge breakthrough for me. And I still work with the founder of Breath of Love, of this work that I do, because it's so powerful. Like I still do this in myself as I teach, right? Like I teach it, but I've not found anything else more profound.
You practice it as a student, as a person healing.
Yes. So I had this session where I forget what my intention was specifically, but it was something around sovereignty, something around connecting to myself. And I had these memories, and this is where this work gets super juicy, because when we actually go in and we're like, oh, there's some tingles in my lower belly, and oh, tell me more about right? It's like we just start exploring the sensations. The universe that is held there is so amazing. So I had this experience, and like these relationships started showing up. Oh, and I could tell my mentor wanted me to go to childhood, but I needed to actually speak backwards and go through these relationships and see the consistency. And what I realized is, what was the common theme through all of that? Betrayal, right? Like this feeling of deep betrayal. So as I started to recognize this pattern that was showing up, then my beautiful body presented this memory to me. And I'm going to get real vulnerable and raw with you guys. When I was little, my mom, she was angry, right? There was a lot of anger. She had a lot of things going on in her life after a big move. She didn't have her family, had just had another kid, my younger brother, like all these things were happening for her in her life. So she was angry, right? Mm-hmm. It was so angry one day, like so much explosive anger that as a little kid, I was freaking out. And I ran downstairs and I called my dad and I paged him and said something to him, which I'm not going to share here, but I said something to him that I needed him to come home now.
How old were you? Do you know?
I was about 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So my dad gets this message. He comes home immediately. And by that point, like everything had calmed down. The energy had shifted. And I didn't cognitively remember this. This is the key. I did not cognitively remember this. My body remembered, but my mind did not. That he looked at me and he said, Jenna, don't you ever say something like that to me again. Because he was so scared, right? Mm-hmm. But in that moment, mom, source, angry. It was a threat. I was terrified, right, of this situation that was happening. Dad says, don't ever say that to me again. So this is the other person that I'm looking to protect me, take a stand for me, be there for me. And he says, don't ever say that again. And so in that moment, I felt this betrayal, like, oh my gosh. So then that's where it's those very specific moments. That part of me was continuing to recreate these patterns through these relationships, because even though we may learn something that's not healthy, we might learn a behavior that's not healthy. It's familiar. And
that feels safe.
Exactly. And it even though it's detrimental, even though it's not healthy, even though it makes us feel safe, because the ego's like, oh, this is familiar. This is an unknown. This must be where I'm supposed to be and stay safe. So this is how, just as an example, look at your relationships and be really honest with yourself. Where is this showing up? Is there a pattern, right? Look at your jobs. Is there a pattern in how you show up consistently in these jobs? How you eat food? You can look at your relationship to food. Is there certain times, women, is there times of the month that you're craving this? So we have these patterns and these cycles in every facet of our life that we can look at to give us these indicators of there's actually a deeper part of me. There's something that happened at some point in my life that is being recreated over and over and over again. Just so we can do our work, we can go back to that place, we can love that place, right? So this is something that I feel is really important to say in this moment, is that, especially in the yoga community, we hear letting go, like let it go. We hear letting go all the time. You got to let it go. You got to let it go. La, la. To me, letting go implies you got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's got to go. And that, in that exact belief, is what is perpetuating the issue.
Yeah.
No, what we actually need to do is hold it closer. As a little kid, this self-doubt that you guys might be experiencing as a teacher, you learned that, and you did such a good job as a little kid learning these different things, these different perspectives, these different pieces, that they just need to be loved and appreciated for how genius it was to create whatever it was that you created. That's where you see results.
Yeah, I have so many things that I could just like pull from everything you just shared. 2 things. Yes, the trauma, the self-doubt will just continue to show up until we look at it, until we face it, until we make space. Yeah. Like you say, love it, let it be there and feel into it. And that's exactly what happened with my trauma that I had a few years ago. It was very similar to a trauma I had as a child. So it gave me another opportunity to work through this, to do my work. And it was huge. It was massive, and it still is. So that's super interesting. And then another thing that you say that I totally agree with is the letting go language in the yoga community. So I've stopped saying it. I've trained teachers to stop saying it. And the reason is we can't tell someone to let go. That's not up to us. So if we as a yoga teacher say, just let go of your day, let go of what's stressing you out, let go of any sadness, right? we can't tell them to do that. That's their work. We can hold space for them. We can create safe space for them to look at what they're holding on to. But we can't tell someone to let go, because what if someone, I mean, most of the time, they're not even ready to let go. And then they start to get in their heads and they're like, well, something must be wrong with me if I can't let this go. So I know that you and I super vibe on the trauma-informed yoga. And that's a huge piece that I bring into my trainings and my teaching. And we just had this conversation in my trauma-informed YTT. So I think that's a really important thing to touch on for yoga teachers. Appreciate you bringing that up. So, okay, yes, all of the things. You do such good work. Let's look at, what is breath work? What is breath work? How is it different from pranayama in yoga? Once you explain it, then I want to share a little bit about my experience doing breath work.
To be clear, there are many different styles of breath work, right? And just like there are many different styles of pranayama techniques, right? We have alternate nostril breathing. We have breath of fire. We have ujjayi, right? We have all of these different really beautiful pranayama techniques. Same likewise in the breathwork world. There's Wim Hof, there's circular breathing, there's a bajillion different things that are used where we use the breath to create some sort of result. So similar in that aspect, pranayama versus breathwork. Breathwork specifically is a little bit different because you're actually dedicating like a whole, depending on what you're doing, the version that you're doing. We'll talk about breath of love. Breath of love is the type of breathwork that I teach and bring and use with my clients. With that, breath of love specifically is about embodiment. To me, yes, it's beautiful and amazing to have these super ethereal experiences and come out here into the ethers. And we're human. For me, it's like, how can I bring this big, beautiful oneness that I am into my physical body, into my physical reality? So a lot of these different styles of breath work, they miss the component of embodiment.
So I'm going to pause you right there. What is embodiment? What does that mean to you? Because not everyone has an awareness around what that really is.
So to me, embodiment means that I embody the vision. I embody the soul. I embody my heart, that passion, whatever it is that keeps you going, that keeps you moving through the day, like that excitement, that soul essence in the physical body. And so how we can tell if a person is embodied in the body, right? Mm-hmm. What does their day-to-day life look like? What do their finances look like? What does their job look like? What are their relationships like? What kind of house do they live in? These very practical day-to-day human things. For those of you listening, to start to recognize, are you way out here in the clouds? Or is there a place where you can actually start to bring these ideas into your physical reality, into your day-to-day life? Start actually making practical changes as a human.
Yeah, totally. And that's the hard work. It sounds so easy when you say it, but it's fucking hard.
Oh my God. Human, daily, I'm like, really? Is this really what I signed up for? This is really what I chose to do, soul? Like, what? Because we're so complex. We're so perfectly.
Yeah. It's not easy to be a human. Okay. Yeah. No, thanks for explaining that and breaking it down.
So yeah, I want to thrive here. If I have this one chance, I believe in reincarnation, but in this lifetime, I have this one chance. I want to thrive. I want to have a lot of money. I want to express myself. I want to be living on purpose. I want to make a big impact. I have all these things that I desire to do as a human. And that's why it's such a passion for me and this is how we use breathwork to do this. So this is the key with breath of love. How are all of you breathing right now? Most likely in and out through your nose, right? So breath of love is through the nose. And the reason for that is because as we actually start to use a specific style of breath, whatever that style of breath is, consciously breathing, the neurochemistry in the brain starts to adapt. It starts to make adjustments. Things start to move. So to me, one of the most powerful ways to create a breakthrough around limiting beliefs, a breakthrough around an emotion, a breakthrough around a pattern showing up in your life, one of the most powerful tools we have is the breath. Why? It is our direct connection to source, right? Breath comes, we don't really know why, how it comes, but it comes. And then when it's not here anymore, you're not here anymore. We're able to use the breath and use specific styles of breathing to create a desired result. So that's breath work in a nutshell. Like, it's like a whole, I mean, we could talk for 4 hours about what breath work is.
I want to share a little bit about my experience doing it with you, because it was so different. If I were to have an expectation, which I really tried not to, it still was a different experience than what I imagined it could have been before going into it with you. And it was my first time doing breath work outside of yoga, outside of yogic breath, all the different styles and practices. It was fucking amazing. I loved it. I loved the session. It was an incredible experience. Ever since then, it's been a few weeks now, has it? Yeah, few weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks since I've done it with you. And during it, I had an amazing experience and was very connected to love for myself, love for others, love for the world in the most extreme way than I've ever experienced and felt before. And not only that, but I felt actual vibration. I felt the universe. I felt the source, whatever you want to call it, truly moving through my body to the point of serious, intense vibration through my entire body, unlike I've ever experienced and felt. It was magical. It was incredible. And you created such a safe space for me to go there and to go into this deep experience. And I mean, so many things came up for me during it. I got emotional. I cried in a really beautiful way. I just felt, like I said, like the greatest message that I left with from that, the greatest gift I left with from that session was, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed with love right now that all I want to do is love everyone unconditionally. And how that is the ultimate purpose of life. Is like, how can I give and receive love, true love? And it was beautiful. And so ever since then, I have felt very connected to myself and others. I've tuned into energies in a deeper way than I have before. And I've always been highly intuitive. I pick up very easily. I'm very empathic. But now it's like a whole new level that it's awesome. Before this last YTT started this previous weekend, it's my 200-hour program, I haven't met everyone beforehand. But a couple days leading up to the weekend is when I really start to drop into myself. I really start to slow down so I can show up and serve and to come with a full cup. And those couple days, everyone in the group's energy and presence and their essence was showing up for me. And I could feel everyone's transformation that was about to come through the training, through the program, and the collective container so powerfully that it made me emotional. And then once I showed up and I started, we had our opening circle. It was like the most magical opening circle. And I've had some beautiful opening circles. So this is how crazy can it even beat anything else? But it did. So highly recommend it for anyone listening. You got to do a session with Jenna, seriously.
Aw.
Yeah.
What I really appreciate about what you shared, Taylor, is, and goes back to the embodiment piece too, is we can have really profound experiences in the actual session, but to me, the work goes beyond what happens in the actual session. It unfolds in our lives in a whole new way. And so for you to actually recognize wow, I have this intuitive connection that I haven't had. Wow, I can feel energies. Wow, I have this impact a more substantial impact to create. That is such a good example of embodiment, of creating actual tangible change in your day-to-day existence. So I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, it was great. That's perfect. So I like that you brought it up in here, and we've had conversations around this before too. So now we're thinking about the listeners for this podcast. It's yoga teachers. And you and I have had conversations before about having mentors. We have mentors, we have coaches. We don't do this alone. We have support, and we're like always doing the work. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you do have mentors in specific areas of your life, because I truly believe that if you are committed to like truly stepping into your purpose, thriving and living an empowered life, you need support. You need mentors. You need that guidance and coaching. Who do you work with?
Yeah. First, before I go there, I want to say number one most expensive mistake you can make as a business owner is trying to do everything by yourself. We get hung up in this idea of like, oh, I'm scared to invest. Oh, I don't have a lot of money. We get into the money fears, but literally you are losing tens of thousands of dollars trying to figure it out on your own. You're worth the investment on every level. Find those people that are going to support you and be in your corner, because the more support that you have, the easier it becomes to actually do the things that you love to do in the mission, right? That is vital to recognize. So my mentors. So I work with Julia Mick. She's the founder of Breath of Love. I still work with her on a very ongoing, regular basis. I have a business coach. His name is Alok Apodurai. He is amazing. So I'm currently in that mastermind. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other just like healers, mentors that I work with on an ongoing basis. One in particular, Dev and Nicole from Twin Flame Revolution. They are epic and amazing. Follow their content. I have like a whole team of people so that in those moments that I start to feel like, oh, this is coming up for me, I know that I'm taken care of. I know. Right? So I have a whole team of people. There's really been this push to more self-care. I feel like that is really starting to gain more and more momentum, and investing in yourself and finding people you feel safe with, that you know have got your back no matter what. And in many different facets. We are multidimensional. I've said this already. We have so many different facets, and especially for the listeners that are looking at creating more of a yoga business with this beautiful teaching that you have to share with the world, build up your team.
And that's exactly, like we've had the conversation before. That's what I'm creating right now is Yogipreneur School, a business program for teachers, a conscious business program for teachers, which Jenna will be offering some type of breath work for the group that's in that program. Yep. Because I believe that if you're trying to grow a business, you can't just learn tactical business skills. Mindset, self-belief is the biggest piece to growing it. Yes. So it'll have many elements. And I know you're in the same path as I am.
Fascinating. As you're growing a business, there is so much you have to do, the inner work and the outer work. It's learn the strategies, learn the tactics. Don't try to recreate that wheel. If I would have hired a business coach 2 years ago when I left, I would be in a completely different place than I am right now, right? Perfect timing, but business coach and then inner work, because as you're developing your business, your shit is gonna come up.
So hardcore. It's so intense.
Yeah. So that's just, if I can offer any inspiration or any just extra push for anybody, if it's me, if it's Taylor, if it's our combination, there's so many people out there, you guys, please let go of this idea that you have to do it all alone. Yeah. You don't.
No. And you shouldn't at all. At all.
No.
What is your, let's see, I think top 1 would be too difficult. Let's go with, what are your top 2 non-negotiables for self-care so that you can show up and do the work you're doing and serve?
Top 1 non-negotiable is support. Non-negotiable. That is vital. 100%. I will tell you, there have been multiple times where I have literally given my last dollar in my bank account towards a mentorship program. And every time I have done that, because that's a scary, especially as an entrepreneur, I don't have a consistent paycheck. I have given that last dollar because I trusted so much that by me navigating through these inner things that were coming up, I know that the money is available and is going to come back to me. Every time I've had clients that have done this, that super big stretch of like, the breakthrough on the other side of that, money falls out of the sky, clients fall out of the sky, opportunities. The universe is like, oh, you're going to actually say yes to yourself. Like, let me celebrate you. Right.
Yeah.
So
it shows that you're committed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It shows that you're committed, and it shows that you're going to be bold and fearless in like, I'm going to say yes to myself no matter what. This fear, most likely, you guys, the fear that has been holding you back from investing with that mentor or leaving the job, that fear has been controlling your whole life and will continue to control your life until you say, I'm going to throw myself off of this cliff and I'm going to be caught.
I love that. So true. Okay. So what's your second non-negotiable for self-care?
My second non-negotiable for self-care is having a spacious morning. So like I hated getting up in the morning, having my alarm set, getting ready. I'm not a morning person, right? I don't operate well in the morning. And that's just, now that I've left corporate and actually have learned, I have this beautiful natural rhythm that needs to be honored and followed. And I can create my schedule however I want to create my schedule. I don't take any clients before 1:00 in the afternoon. And I spend that whole time, like I get up when my body wants to get up. Some days that's 6 a.m. Some days that's 8 a.m. Like I let my body guide my sleep. Not negotiable. And then I have my routine. I water my garden. I play with my dogs who have made their own presence on this program. I drink my celery juice. I move my body in some way, whether it's working out or yoga, right? Yeah. I do meditation, and like that is another non-negotiable for me. I have to have that time for myself because it sets the tone for the whole rest of the day. And I can show up from a full cup versus one that's constricted and, I have to get up and do these things.
You are so speaking my language and exactly me. Like everything you just said is me. I do not wake up to alarms anymore. Like the only time is if there's like a trip and I have to catch a plane, right? I used to, and it just killed me. It killed my soul. And I hated it so much because I love to just let my body sleep whenever it's ready. I don't schedule things before 11:30 or noon. I prefer noon. Sometimes it's 11, because I also need my slow morning. So I'm with you. Yes. Yeah. I'm so with you.
Honestly, I think that when I even just hear the word alarm, and I truly feel like I had some PTSD from just the sound of an alarm. Having it go up, especially Monday mornings, like that time when it's just like, no. So yeah.
Well, I also really love that you're saying this because I think that so many people believe that they have to just live in a schedule that they don't like. Yep. And you don't. That's all created, right? So like that's something that I've also, even my mom, I used to say, I don't want to teach in the mornings. And she's like, well, sometimes you got to do things you don't like to do. So I would kind of take that like, I guess that's just part of being an adult. Then I started to realize, I thrive better at this time of day. I don't do my best in the mornings. I need quiet time for myself. And I started to shift my entire life and schedule to fit what I enjoy. Now I just have this schedule that I actually like and love and that it feels good. So it's 100% possible to create a schedule you love.
Absolutely. And to me, I feel like it's also it's important because we all do have our own natural rhythms. We have our timing where we have peak performance hours and we have hours that we need to be going a little bit slower. And that's what I think is so beautiful. We're all so unique. And it's also like, that's why we need more of us to be stepping into our purpose, stepping into a new way of life, out of the box, out of that old paradigm, which clearly isn't working anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And to find that special place where you can thrive in your gifts and your essence and who you are.
Love it. All right. So where can people find you and connect with you? What's your Instagram? What's your website and Facebook?
So here on Facebook, Jenna Hedstrom is how you can find me. You can find me on Instagram at Jenna Page Healing. So Page is Paige, Jenna Page Healing. Either platform works great. I have 2 different studios I'm currently teaching at. So I teach over at Gilbert Yoga. I have Breathwork a couple of times a week, which is like just a quick little 1-hour introduction to what I do. Super powerful. And then I also teach like a restorative sound healing. Okay. And then I'm also teaching over at One Tribe 1 day a week. So I have those set schedules. So if you are in the East Valley, if you want to pop into any of those classes, that's a great way to come introduce yourself to me, say hello. So those are a couple good places to find me.
And that's in Arizona, because not everyone lives in Arizona.
Yeah, so. Right. Hello, virtual world. Yep, it's in Arizona. Yeah.
How can someone work with you?
So I have a couple different options. If any of this has been sounding intriguing to you guys today, I do have a workshop that's virtual for those of you that are not here in Arizona, coming up this Sunday from 2 to 5 PST. I can send you, if you find me on social media, there's the link in my bio on Instagram and also on my website, which I didn't say, which is jennapagehealing.com. So that's a really great way to come have your own experience. And I do these pretty much every other week. So as long as we somehow stay connected, that's a great way to have an introduction to my work. I am offering a really exciting special for everyone listening. So if you mention to me, if you reach out on social media, via email, whatever your way is, and mention this beautiful Yoga Teachers Circle podcast, that will be your code to receive a super, super discounted special rate for your first one-on-one session. One-on-one can be in person or it can also be virtual. So reach out there, take advantage of that. This is not something that I do very often, but I love Taylor dearly. I'm so passionate about this work. I have this mission to support women bringing their mission forward, right? So if you guys are ideal for that, definitely take me up on that.
Yes, I second that. Take her up on it. It will change your life. It's very transformational. So Jenna, you are amazing. I appreciate you so much. I love how open you are, how vulnerable you've been on this conversation, on this podcast, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you for sharing yourself with this community.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here and in this space where this is just my jam, you know, like this is my space. This is what I love to do. So I'm so, so, so honored to be here and to be with all of you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening in today. I'd love to stay connected with you in between episodes. You can find me on Instagram at Taylor_Ray Yoga and join the free private Yoga Teacher Circle Facebook group, which is full of some pretty awesome and badass yoga teachers.